Alrighty. I hereby call the City Council meeting for October 12, 2017 to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Linda?
Councilmember King.
Here.
Councilmember Mercado.
Here.
Councilmember Rife.
Here.
Vice Mayor Andrusik.
Here.
And Mayor Sierra.
Here. Thank you very much. Do we have any reordering of the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Alrighty. We move on to public comments. This is the public's opportunity to speak about any item they want, whether it's on the agenda or not. I have two public comments. The first person up would be Judy Pedersen. And welcome. Peterson. I should know that, shouldn't I? Box. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Judy Peterson. I was born in Santa Maria, and in my 77 years, Buellton as far as I have gotten. I was raised at Ambrose Lumber Company on the Avenue of Flags, which is now a dilapidated Chinese restaurant. I graduated from the little post office here in '54 and the high school in '58 when there was all 56 of us. My kids have done the same thing, and I was in banking for 45 years. My question is this tonight. I recently found out, kind of through the grapevine and by a neighbor, that the lot across the street from me had been bought by the city of Buellton. My question is this lot in the specific plan? I would like to know what your plans are to do with this lot. I'd like for this to be kept on an open public discussion. We are going to be neighbors, and I want to know what is happening. I've spent thousands of dollars on the two homes that I own right there across the street, and I want to keep living in a good neighborhood. The traffic on Central is bad, and something needs to be done. Perhaps speed bumps, but I know that won't ever happen. What is going to happen with that lot across the street?
Mr. Berzinski, maybe you can help.
First of all, it's not in the Avenue Flag specific plan. It's outside of it. The City Council directed staff to look at various options on the lot that would be brought back to a public meeting here at the City Council, and we will include all the neighbors on the next meeting that we discuss what's going to happen on the property. We haven't decided yet. We're looking at various options, from a parking lot, a apartment complex, or a maybe office mixed-use project.
Okay, well, let's just hope it's not something that brings more traffic to Central Avenue.
And it will be very public, Judy.
Because the tenants in my home are moving out strictly because of the four-way stop sign on the corner of Central and 2nd Street, and the people squealing tires, going 90 miles an hour down the street, and it's just from 2nd Street to Highway 246 is not good. Just not good at all. So,
thank you.
So there will be further discussion on this.
Yes, and everybody will be notified in the immediate area.
Okay.
Absolutely. And thank you for coming. Our next speaker, Mark Stroba.
Good evening, everyone. I'm actually here to listen to the agenda items about the Avenue of the Flags. However, while I was getting ready to come over here, I was watching the news, including the news about the fires in Northern California. Entire cities have not just been burned to the ground, they have been incinerated, including a mobile home park about the size of Ranch Club Estates, where I live, and a residential community larger than the city of Buellton. I sincerely hope the City Council will keep this terrible event in mind as they plan for the city's safety in the future, especially for evacuation plans. That has been a big problem up there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mart, I appreciate that almost everybody in Ranch Club has been CERT trained too. You were the first in the city to do that.
It won't help us a bit with a fire like that.
No. Thank you. Alrighty, that's all I have for public comment. If anybody else wants to get up and speak before we hit our agenda items, now would be the time. Otherwise, I'm closing public comment and we'll move on. Okay, moving on to our consent calendar. We have a few items. The minutes of September 28, 2017, regular City Council meeting. List of claims to be approved and ratified for payment to date for fiscal year 2017-18. The monthly treasurer's report through August 31st, 2017, and the monthly private project balance report through August 31, 2017. I'd like to pull number 4, if I could. If anybody has anything else they'd like to pull. Then do I have a motion for items 1 through 3?
So moved. Second.
Linda?
All right. Vice Mayor Andrusik.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Mercado.
Aye.
Councilmember Rife.
I think I have to abstain for the minutes, don't I?
No, he's not here.
Okay, yeah. I have to abstain for the minutes, but I'll approve the rest.
Okay. And Mayor Sierra.
Aye. Alrighty. My question is, first of all, I'd like to thank staff, Director Zamora, for putting together our monthly private project balance report through August 31st. There's a lot of negatives there, and I was just wondering what city staff is doing to resolve those issues.
So we currently bill monthly. The negatives that you see on the report are developer balance dues,
Right.
and the majority of that is 2 particular projects, so that I'm sure council is aware of. Usually the turnaround for payments is anywhere between 60 to 90 days, so you might see large numbers now, but within 2 months we will receive at least half of it.
Okay.
So we've been billing monthly to make sure we receive that money. And we're also asking developers for additional deposit to make sure those balances kind of go to zero.
Thank you. We've got 7 different projects that are in the red right now, and I realize one of them we're working with, but
Yeah.
okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Then I would move to approve agenda item number 4.
Second.
Okay.
Linda?
Did you second? Okay. Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
And Councilmember Mercado.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Rife.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Andrusik.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Do we have any presentations tonight?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Public hearings. Agenda item number 5, resolution number 17-17, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California, revising the safety element of the General Plan 17-GPA-01 by adding wording regarding the 2017 Local Hazard Mitigation Plan. Mr. Beardzinski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. The California Government Code requires that the city's local hazard mitigation plan be integrated into the city's safety element of the general plan. As I mentioned at our last meeting, our local hazard mitigation plan was approved by the county and by FEMA recently, so we have a fully adopted plan for the next 5 years. But in order to continue to get disaster grants and reimbursements, we just need some clerical changes to the safety element that references our local hazard mitigation plan. So that's what basically this item is, and the Planning Commission at their September 21st meeting recommended the City Council adopt the proposed revisions to the safety element. So we're asking the City Council to consider adoption of Resolution 1717, making these changes.
Okay. Any questions for the City Manager? Then I open it up to public comment. I have no speaker slips. If anybody wants to speak about this agenda item, now's the time. Closing public comment for agenda item number 5, bringing it back to council. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 17-17.
Okay. And can we do consensus on this since there's no financial? Okay.
No resolution. Yeah. Councilmember Mercado.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Andrusik.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Rife.
Aye.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye. Alrighty. Moving on to agenda item number 6, resolution number 17-19, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California, approving a mitigated negative declaration 17-MND-02 and mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the Avenue of Flags specific plan.
And read the ordinance wording too, please.
Okay, let me get over here real quick. Okay, for number 6. You want ordinance number 1704? Okay. In our paper, they're two separate. Ordinance number 1704, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California, adopting the Avenue of Flags specific plan, 17-SP-01, introduction and first reading. Mr. Beardzinski.
Actually, this is contract planner Irma
Oh,
Tucker
you're
will be
right.
giving this.
There we go.
And just to let you know, these are it's one item, but you have to do two separate actions. We have to do the resolution first because it's the environmental, and then the ordinance.
Agenda item number 6, two
Yes.
parts. Got it. Ms. Tucker.
All right, thank you, and good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. Tonight is a culmination of a 2-year planning effort in preparation of the Avenue Flag specific plan. The effort involved numerous public workshops, planning commission, and city council meetings, as well as meeting with the property and business owners, and a great team of city staff and consultants. So we're all we put together a document that has gone through a lot of review and a lot of effort has gone into it. Rather than go through a lengthy introduction on the plan itself and the background, which we have presented several times to council, I would like to jump right in tonight and to what's currently reflected and proposed in the specific plan, and then open it up to discussion afterwards and questions. But first, before I do that, I would just like to reiterate where the direction for the specific plan started, and it was really the goal that was in the vision statement for the Avenue Flags, and it was to create a vibrant downtown based on the Avenue, and this came out of the Buellton Vision Plan in 2012. The highlights of it are to create a architecturally distinctive and economically robust downtown area, which features a central plaza, refined traffic pattern, ample parking, bikeways, and a distinctive architectural style. Okay, that's not going forward. It's okay. So the slide that we are looking at now is the urban design vision for the Avenue of Flags. This was presented to City Council in January, and there were revisions that the Council had requested to be made to the medians, among other things. And this urban design vision actually reflects the changes that were requested by City Council, and I will go through them. There's a more detailed explanation in the staff report. I will highlight, though, the changes that were made. For Division 2, for Median 2, we removed the structures that were shown on the median and created flex space for diagonal parking and event areas on most of the median. The pavement was to be cobblestones, paved surfaces with a rolled curb. There was to be trees and shrubbery and movable containers, post holes for removable shade containers, and infrastructure and stub outs for fiber optics. And those are reflected in the draft specific plan. Next slide. For Median 3, several of the structures were removed, and what the council requested to remain to be shown on the median was the town plaza and the amphitheater with a lot of grassy areas, trees, landscaping, and shade in between, along with a conceptual location for public restroom building. And that is shown on the conceptual drawing there, along with some small outbuildings. Possibly they could be shade structures, but again, this is a conceptual rendering.
Hey, Irma.
Oops, sorry.
Do you want questions in the middle or at the end?
I think we're going to wait.
We going to answer it?
We're going to wait until the end. And then I'll have council ask questions, and then I'll open it up to public comment, and then suggestions after that.
Yep.
If that's okay. That way we can get through it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Median 4, again, the structures were removed, and this is shown to be used as flex space in the initial stages of the specific plan. And there could be improvements later on for artisan and craft displays and food vendors. We will be keeping the flag areas and the memorials that are currently located on the on this median. And again, as with medians 2, 3, and 4, we will have infrastructure stub outs for the fiber optics. Oh, okay, sorry. I'll just let you do it. Okay. The circulation and transit plan, we also took a close look at. We looked at the number and locations of the crosswalks to make sure that they were adequate and best suited to promote pedestrian safety, and felt that there were no additional mid-block crossings needed. And there are multi-way stop signs shown along Avenue Flags at DeMassa Road, 2nd Street, and 1st Street. Class 2 bike lanes are indicated where it's safe. And transit stops, there's currently 1 transit stop at Avenue Flags and 2nd Street. And there are 2 2 park and ride stops, one to the north of the specific plan boundary, which is going to be a future park and ride, and the one that's currently installed just to the south of the boundary. And this plan is a graphic illustration of what is currently reflected in the specific plan, along with the comments that I just summarized. Okay. Additional request was to eliminate the proposed new diagonal parking on the business frontage side of the Avenue of Flags, and to show parallel parking in those locations where it was safe and the space is available. The diagonal parking that's existing is remaining, and there are existing parking spaces currently along the business frontages, Vintage Walk, Piece of Panderson's, and complex of buildings where Mother Hubbard's is locating. So those have remained. This is a summary of the spaces shown here. That we gained 142 new spaces, with the total parking spaces on the avenue of 327. This may change slightly per Planning Commission's recommendations, as we'll see just in a few slides. Next slide. And this is the revised parking map, again reflecting those changes that I just summarized. Planning Commission reviewed the revised draft of the specific plan on September 7th that had incorporated all the changes that City Council had requested, as long as other refinements to fine-tune the plan. And some of the additional changes that Planning Commission requested were to eliminate the large vehicle parking along the west side of Median 1. And this is in a location that is just at the entry to the city, as you're coming off the southbound off-ramp to the freeway. That's where the 3 parking spaces were located previously. They asked us to consider the option of lighted flashing crosswalk signs rather than 4-way stop signs where it's feasible to do so. They also asked that we prohibit drive-through lanes. And as a note, I would like to mention that drive-in and drive-through sales are already a prohibited use in the draft-specific plan. So the prohibition of the drive-through lanes is just further reinforces that standard. They asked that we add a policy encouraging local and regional uses as opposed to national chains. And also to continue to monitor traffic counts along Central Avenue as the specific plan is implemented. The traffic is, as was mentioned before, is a concern, is something that staff is mindful about, and we will continue to monitor how the traffic patterns change as the specific plan is implemented and determine in the future how those changes may need to be addressed. And then finally, the Planning Commission deleted the agricultural architectural style. Staff has reviewed the changes resulting from the Planning Commission recommendations, most notably the deletion of the agrarian architectural style, and felt that some further revisions were warranted to make sure that the specific plan design is a cohesive design and that aesthetically pleasing buildings and cohesive theme as well results on the avenue. As a result, we are recommending changing the architectural design style from the Art Moderne 50s diner that was named in this draft specific plan to Art Deco, which is a more encompassing style. It's a more flexible style, and we feel will permit better representation of Buellton's historical and car culture elements. So with the deletion of the agrarian style, that left only two styles really, the Art Deco and the Craftsman style. And staff felt that it was necessary to add a third style to hold those other two styles together, and also to relate to some of the current architectural styles that exist on the avenue and on the periphery. And as a result, we are recommending that the Monterey Revival style be added as that third style. One additional recommendation is that we include a summary of the existing and proposed widths of the median, and this is mostly for clarification purposes. We've had a lot of confusion over what well, not a lot of confusion, but questions over what the current widths are and what the proposed widths are going to be, so we felt a clarification table for this is warranted. So again, to elaborate a little bit, the proposed design styles would be Craftsman and Monterey Revival for the primary styles. And then the accent style would be Art Deco, which again encompasses the 50s diner and the Art Moderne decorative themes. This is mentioned as an accent style because we feel that in order to be effective and to result with a aesthetically pleasing downtown, that a judicious use and strategic placement of the Art Deco is really warranted. And again, this is an important element that would create a distinct identity and a differentiating brand for the downtown area, as well as showcasing Buellton's historic service town and car culture elements. The next few slides are a visual representation of the styles. And we have the Craftsman and the Monterey Revival. Both of these lend themselves to multiple stories with balconies, overhangs, and they reflect themes that are currently existing on the avenue, and they give a lot of opportunity and visual cohesiveness. The accent style, which is on the next slide, is the Art Deco, and these are some examples of what can be done to use the Art Deco in the downtown area and to provide a strong representation of theming and branding for the avenue. This is the summary of the existing and proposed median widths that we are recommending be placed into the specific plan. I will quickly go through the improvements that are set forth in greater detail in the implementation section and the infrastructure section of the specific plan. The most important to focus on, which is the most realistic thing that we can focus on and plan for, is the phase one improvements, which consist of traffic calming and safety measures, sidewalk construction along the avenue flex frontages, infrastructure upgrades to the medians, which include fiber optic subouts to medians 2, 3, and 4. During this phase, we would be identifying funding measures for funding mechanisms for the safety measures, as well as the infrastructure improvements. And we also will be identifying public parking areas and potential parking districts as the parking demand in the future in the avenue increases. We want to be prepared to address that need as it comes along. Just a couple of comments on specific improvements to the medians. We have initiated conversations with Caltrans regarding treatments to the roundabout. Treatments to the off-ramp at the southbound Avenue flags. Median 2, we would be constructing the flex space for parking and events. So we would actually be installing the parallel parking shown for median 2. And we would be proceeding with planning the design improvements for medians 1, 3, and 5. Phase 2 improvements, which are a little bit further down the line, and they are subject to funding availability. So we would be looking at these more carefully as time goes forward and the specific plan begins to be implemented. As well as for phase 3. I mean, the phase 2 and 3 would be further improvements to the medians, and the timing of these improvements would be dependent on how quickly the implementation takes place of phase 1 and the build out of the area as well. Okay. More information about the phases concurrently with the improvements on the avenue. There will be upgrades to State Route 246, potential off-site parking lots, including city parking lots, a potential secondary circulation pattern, and there will be improvements that we are yet have not been able to identify, but improvements that would result from the DOR incentives and public-private partnerships as the properties are developed on the avenue. And at this juncture, I would like to turn over the presentation to Mr. Joe Diegas from the Cosmont Companies. He will address some of our economic development slides, and then I will come back and finish off the presentation.
Thanks, Irma. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, be here again, Joe Diegas.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Senior Vice President with Cosmont Companies. Big part of implementation of the specific plan is, of course, identification of funding sources. How are you going to pay for things? I'd characterize this table as a menu of the potential options for implementation. There are 3 rows in this table. Top row, the potential uses are all different types of infrastructure improvements. So the left-hand side is the various sources available to fund infrastructure improvements. Second row, the targeted use is resolution of financial feasibility gaps. In other words, a developer trying to get a particular project to pencil, reach financial feasibility. What are tools available to help us help them? And then the bottom row is just how would an existing business, let's say, what's a source that they can use to expand, or a new business, what's a source that they can use to fund new improvements. And it's nothing revolutionary. SBA loans have been around for a while. To touch on a few of these rather quickly on the potential sources in the first column. Impact fees, very typical for cities. Buellton, of course, has its categories already set up. DOR, I'd like to talk about in a little bit more depth in a moment. Parking district revenues, lease revenues for private businesses operating on the median. EIFT property tax increment. I actually want to take a separate moment in one slide to talk a little bit about that one in a bit more detail. Grant revenues, or grant sources rather. We always want to keep our eyes on available grant sources, either that already exist or that continue to be announced federally or statewide, and those do continue to be announced. General fund, SSTR, the site-specific tax revenue, just the idea that as new development comes in, the city realizes new fiscal revenues, property tax, sales tax, potentially hotel tax, additional resources at the city's disposal, if it so chose to invest them. In the second row, DOR is a repeat, SSTR is a repeat, grant sources is a repeat. And the last row, SBA loans. Again, nothing revolutionary. Those have been around for a while. So the EIFD, I also want to touch on CFD. We heard loud and clear in previous originally planning commission hearings, and then City Council verified. We wanted to eliminate CFD from even the menu of potential sources.
Could you give the longer version of that for everybody in the audience, CFD and EIFD, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
CFD stands for Community Facilities District. This is a special tax. It's an additional tax above the standard tax on a property that property owners have to vote in, and those are typically used for either capital expenditures related to infrastructure or ongoing maintenance of infrastructure. They're typically done in one or two ways. One is a city takes the lead and overlays a CFD over a large area that property owners in that area would then vote to approve or disapprove. The other way this often happens is a property owner themselves or developer will put a CFD on their own property if they want to finance really any type of infrastructure, whether it's on-site or in-tract infrastructure or regional infrastructure that would benefit their project. The reasoning behind removing it from the menu based on community feedback was it is indeed an additional tax on the property owner. So even if they sort of voted it in on themselves, the idea is we didn't want to encourage an additional tax on the property owner. So we removed it from the menu. EIFD is different. The main difference is that it is not an additional tax on the property. It is instead those public agencies that receive property tax, like the city, the county, special districts, school districts are not allowed to participate in EIFDs. It is a dedication to a separate special purpose entity in the EIFD. So revenues that would otherwise go to the general funds of those various entities, they're dedicating those revenues to a specific entity in the EIFD for infrastructure. So kind of prioritizing infrastructure, sending a signal to the private sector that, look, we're dedicated, we're serious about infrastructure, and from a financial perspective, importantly, it's isolation from the general fund. So whether it's a bonded revenue stream or used in a pay-as-you-go, it is not obligating the general fund because it is a separate entity. And the idea is tax increment financing is the mechanism, similar to redevelopment. This whole idea where you set a baseline at some point in time and a future development creates assessed property value lift, and then the revenues that would flow from that increase above the baseline would become available to a city or a county or a special district to contribute to help reinvest in infrastructure. So $10 million project comes in, 1% standard tax, $100,000. Let's say the city gets a tenth of that. The city actually gets much higher in the range of low end 17 cents to high end 33 cents. But let's say the city would just dedicate 10 cents on the dollar of incremental growth to an EIFD. So that's $10,000 a year that would be available for infrastructure, most efficiently combined if we get other entities to participate as well. A county, a special district, whoever we can successfully pitch to participate. As far as governance goes, these things want it to be different from RDA, avoid the pitfalls of RDA in some areas of the state. So it's much more transparent and accountable. So they have, it's supposed to just let's say a city council or a county board governing. They actually require that at least 2 members of the public sit on the governing board. I guess other benefits are, because it's very clearly a special purpose entity dedicated to infrastruture, what we're seeing are grant sources at the state and federal level are placing a higher level of priority for an entity like that versus just a standard city or county because of its special purpose for infrastructure. So as opposed, in addition to just dedicating your own property tax increment, you're increasing your eligibility for external funding sources like grants. So we are, at this point, keeping it in the menu, at least, in the menu of potential uses, because it's not an additional tax on a property owner. That's where we're at today.
I was kind of hoping we could wait to the end, but...
Well, he's up. You want to pin him to finish, and then that's up to you.
Up to you. I will stick around, but I'm happy to answer it now.
No, we'll call him back up.
Okay.
I'll let you start first.
Okay.
I know you're not. I appreciate you being here.
No
Go
problem.
ahead, Joe.
DOR I want to spend some more time on. The big reason why this is sort of baked into the specific plan, is we don't want to just upzone the types of uses that we want on our avenue and just sort of give away that potential density. We wanted to use a program creatively that allows us at the city to get something out of the deal, so to speak. So in order to earn an increased building height or an increased residential density or reduced parking requirement, our goal is to get something on the left side of the table, some community benefit or support for some community objective, whether it's the funding of restrooms that we want to see on the avenue, the installation of infrastructure that Irma was talking about along the avenue. So the idea is a potential developer would do something for us on the left-hand side, and we would give them an incentive on the from the right-hand side that would be financially meaningful to development to allow them to realize a greater risk-adjusted return. Some samples of what that would look like, kind of three illustrative scenarios. One is developer A project. The city gives them a reduction in on-site parking requirement. They, in turn, pay for the improvements of an off-site parking lot to support parking. Sure.
There you go.
Developer B project, developer will receive a residential density bonus, so more dwelling units per acre, but in kind, they do something for us. They build public restrooms on the avenue in this example. Example C, developer C project, developer may receive an increase in maximum building height, and they in turn provide off-site public improvements, sidewalk, roadway, lighting, signalization, whatever the city would prioritize for that project. So we'll talk a little bit about fiscal and economic impacts. A large reason why we're doing that is to provide, and certainly qualitative community impacts and benefits, but quantitatively we want to also translate those into dollars and cents and jobs for the city. So from this baseline build-out, not incentivized via the DOR program, but baseline build-out of 200,000 square feet of commercial, 160 residential units, what that translates into is less than $100,000 in property tax to the city over 30 years, nominally just under $4 million, on a present value $1.65 million. Sales tax is a much greater revenue source for the city. That level of build-out would generate $667,000 on an annual basis over 30 years. On a nominal basis, $31.7 million. On a discounted present value, $12.8 million. In terms of employment, this is sort of direct on-site employment, 556 employees. Again, just within this baseline level of employment. There's a last bullet point here. It's not really on fiscal and economic impacts, but it's related to the property tax discussed on top of the slide. I sort of did the math conceptually earlier with a sample $10 million project, but to sort of illustrate what kind of dollars we're talking about in capacity from a tool like that, it's about $3.2 million from that same level of baseline build-out on a present value basis, or rather on a pay-as-you-go over a district lifetime. Those districts can exist up to 50 years. About $12.6 million that potentially becomes available for infrastructure. And that in that scenario is just utilizing half of the potential property value or property tax revenue growth, not dedicating 100% of incremental revenues. Just a few notes on the following slide on what's in and what's not in those numbers. That was a baseline level of development in terms of square footages and unit counts. It doesn't reflect the potential for projects to receive density increases or building height increases that would allow greater intensities of development. And we were just talking about property tax and sales tax. We're not also including some very real revenue sources for the city, like property tax in lieu of motor vehicle license fees, franchise fees, charges for services, or utility services or other services. And lastly, everything we're talking about is direct on-site on the avenue. Not included in any of those numbers are what we would call off-site or indirect impacts. The potential for new residents on the avenue to spend more at Albertsons, which is not on the avenue, but could conceivably generate greater levels of sales from residents on the avenue. So that's it. I'll certainly remain for questions.
Thank you very much. Back to Irma again.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
At this point, I would like to move on to the environmental review that was conducted on this specific plan. And this was done in accordance with CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. An initial study and mitigated negative declaration was circulated for a 30-day public review and comment from July 18th through August 16th. During this public review period, 4 comment letters were received. San Ynez Valley Transit, Native American Heritage, Santa Barbara County Air Pollution Control District, and Caltrans. The responses to the comment letters were presented to the Planning Commission from staff, and they are summarized in the staff report and detailed further in the MND document, which is part of the packet, attachments to the council packet. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on September 7th to receive comments, discuss the mitigated negative declaration, and it was part of the recommendation that they had adopted at that point. It was to recommend approval to the City Council of the MND as well. As part of the mitigated negative declaration, there were mitigation measures, and these were adopted as, or recommended for adoption as, conditions of approval for the specific plan document, and these conditions would be applicable to future development projects to be built in the specific plan area. So tonight before you is the recommendation for the City Council to consider the resolution in regards to the initial study and the mitigated negative declaration, as well as the first reading of the ordinance for approval of the specific plan document. Comments and any potential revisions that are received from the City Council tonight and directions of staff in regards to the final specific plan would be incorporated into the document that would be brought back before the City Council at the next reading of the ordinance. And that, and this was the recommendation of the staff recommendation that the City Council consider the 2 actions that Mayor Sierra read at the beginning of the agenda item. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the work you've put into this. What I'm going to do is have council ask any questions of you or Joe or Mr. Beardzinski. Then I'll open it up for public comment for any questions or comments, and then we'll bring it back to council for comments and direction and possible approval, adoption. Councilmember Rife, the stage is yours.
Cool. You want to go first, Joe? Sure. All right, let's talk about the IFDs. I want to make sure I understand this, because I'm the one that caused the stir over the CFDs. All right, I've read all your stuff. I still do not understand what an EIFD does. I don't understand how it's funded. I don't understand how it's distinct from a capital improvement project as we have in our budget, or some other, essentially dedicated money as a set aside. So could you just walk through those few things? Maybe talk like a 4-year-old so I can understand it.
You got it. So you have like an existing parcel with some value. The value could be anything. The city and other taxing entities receive some level of property tax from that parcel.
Got it.
In a tool like EIFD, the goal is to take some portion of the increase in value on that parcel that would come from new development, and let's say no EIFD happens.
You mean new development on the property? Okay.
Let's say there's no EIFD in existence and new development happens on that property. The city, the county, the school districts, all the other entities will receive the same percentages of property tax to their standard general funds, and sort of business as usual will continue with greater levels of funding. Let's sort of leave that at that. If you introduce an EIFD into the equation, what you're doing is you're sort of freezing a baseline. If that property had, let's say, $10 million of existing assessed value at that time, all the percentages that the city...
Prior to development.
Prior to development,
okay.
Yeah, exactly. Those same percentages that the city, the county, and special districts and school districts receive, they still get all their same revenue from that frozen level of assessed value before the new development. What the difference would be with an EIFD in place is that if new development happens, if money gets reinvested into that property, that assessed value level increases proportional to, let's say, the cost of improvements made on that property.
Sure.
And the idea with an EIFD is for those entities, only for those entities that agree, that consent to participate, they have the ability to dedicate some portion, not necessarily all of it, some portion of the increase in property values, increase in property tax revenues that they would have received from that increase in value. Instead of it just flowing as it would have otherwise into its general fund, it is some part of it is being directed into a special bucket, special fund segregated from the general fund that has a special purpose. The case for EIFD is the purpose is infrastructure. If it were just a city going alone, someone could easily make the argument that why not just keep it in the general fund and in a capital improvement program or something, just say, look, we have a line item there. It's doing the same thing. We're saying this money is going to be used for a parking structure. Why do we need an EIFD? I'll keep talking a situation with a city-only EIFD. The benefit is not as great as with partners. The primary benefits in that case, I would say primarily, segregation from the general fund. If it gets used in a deal, or let's say it gets used for bonded indebtedness, you are in no way endangering general fund credit, because the revenues used as collateral for something like a bond issuance are only based on the property tax allocated to that entity. And so your general fund's not on the line. That's typically more important for like a I'd call that like a finance director's perspective. What I think is much more important than that are probably two other things. One is, it might sound qualitative, but it is actually significant. It's the level of signal to a private sector participant, like a developer. What you're saying is you're not just kind of grouping it into a capital improvement program that can actually be pulled out if it's so chosen, let's say if other general fund priorities come up, but rather special purpose entity, it is dedicated. It is dedicated for infrastructure. It's sort of untouchable. Like sending money to a retirement plan, city's saying, I'm not going to touch it. I told myself I was going to use it for infrastructure, I'm going to use it. Okay. I think the last benefit I would say, though, is the elevation of eligibility for external funding sources. If a city, let's say, is applying to U.S. Department of Transportation for one of these infra grants for roadway improvements, that city is competing with other cities, counties, councils of government, etc. If an EIFD specifically is going after that grant, it is perceived by that grant provider as an elevated level of priority, because look, this money, we know where it's going. All this entity is set up for is infrastructure. We would rather give money to that entity versus just some city. Everything I just described is for a city-only EIFD. Some of our clients say, look, despite everything I just said, we're not even going to look at an EIFD if we don't get another partner, like a county, like a water district, or a flood control district, or a sanitation district. That's a reasonable policy, because in the case when you have a partnership, you're setting up an EIFD where it's not just your money from the city going into that entity, it's other people's money. Other entities, like, let's say, a county or something, that can receive a regional benefit from some, roadway improvement that serves multiple people, let's say, crossing the 101. Or if we can make the case financially, which we often do, that we have a certain dollar amount of infrastructure that we want to install, and based on just regular revenue flows, we're not going to be able to do it. If we do raise the money to install that improvement, we know that there is this specific project that's going to come in, because now they have a traffic improvement that could support their traffic generation. There is a but-for argument that if, let's say, that EIFD didn't happen and didn't invest in that infrastructure, that new private development wouldn't come in and generate greater levels of fiscal revenues for everybody. And we call that the but-for argument. The argument would have to be that the EIFD is the preferred way to actually get that improvement done, so that everyone could receive a fiscal benefit.
Last question, which was a very good explanation. In your consulting work to date, have you come across an empirical example of something like we're doing with our quote, air quote, downtown, if you will, in a partnership, like another city, you know, in an EIFD partnership? Because I can't imagine who we would partner with for our project in this specific scenario.
Yeah, there. See, the one, so the City of Laverne down in LA County, they're going for the final public hearing on October 30th in a couple weeks to finally approve their EIFD. It's a transit-oriented EIFD because they've got a Metro Gold Line station coming in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Even then, though, they're actually only starting solo. They're starting solo as a city because it so happens that the County of Los Angeles hasn't quite figured out the guidelines that it wants to use to evaluate participation in these things. So what that city is going alone, but leaving open the possibility for a county to jump in later, or another district to jump in later, once they sort of figure out what these things are. When it comes to a place like Buellton, these tools have only been around since late 2014, so only Laverne will be the third one formed. It would have to be a case for, I forget who's on our taxing entity rolls. County is probably the most likely participant. The reason being would be, can we really pitch to them that they would directly benefit from some of the infrastructure improvements? No, not just based on the transportation infrastructure. How could we position a sort of a pitch to them? It would be, we've got this specific plan that lays out all of this potential residential or commercial that can come in on the avenue, only if we can install this infrastructure. So we would say to the county, look, if you don't participate, we can't really do this EIFD thing. The development's going to take maybe 10 or 15 years to come in versus potentially 5 to 10. We at Cosmo or someone else could do an analysis that shows, look, what is that potential opportunity cost lost to the county if they wait 10 or 15 years versus 5 to 10 years in potential property tax revenue and other revenues that they would receive if development comes in sooner. So we'd show them an EIFD scenario where stuff comes in faster and a no EIFD scenario where some of it probably still comes in over time, but just more slowly, and we would show them the dollars and cents.
All right. Thank you, Joe. I had a bunch of questions for Irma.
Please.
I don't know if anybody has questions for Joe while he's there.
I do have one while you're up there. Just being the devil's advocate. Let's say that
Thank you, man.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
So let's say that we do a development, we get an EIFD, and the project doesn't go forward. Let's say they back out. We're still on the hook for that money, correct? Let's say we promise, round number, $1 million for one of the center medians. We get an EIFD with the assumption that the development is going to come in, increase that property value, and that money will be designated to repay that $1 million. Now, let's say the developer backs out. We're still on the hook for that $1 million, correct?
I just want to understand it a little bit better. What was the $1 million for?
Okay, let's say we dedicate $1 million to an improvement project. Whatever it is, restaurant, center median development, whatever.
You can't dedicate the money until the money's in the EIFD to spend.
So
EIFD is a mechanism to gain money. You can't dedicate money from it that you don't have.
it's an important.
I understand what you're saying as well, but what I'm saying is we dedicated the money with the contingency that somebody was coming in. We spend the money, which we have to pay whoever did that, because people in this room aren't going to build that, and we're on the hook for $1 million for that improvement, with the contingency that we were going to get an increase in property taxes from the development that was coming to that.
No, we would not build it until the money was in the fund.
Well, it's not. We're not going to get that money in a week.
Yeah, you can't build. You can't expend any money toward capital improvement or infrastructure from an EIFD until the money's there. So the EIFD is just a mechanism for you to gain money. You can't spend it till it's there. You can't obligate money that's not there.
So
I
if the
understand that,
developer,
but we're not going to take 10 years to get the money to build the project.
Yeah, we may. Well, then we'd have to spend. We'd have to meet general obligations.
This is what I'm saying. We're on the hook for the money.
no, because you don't build it until we have the money.
It wouldn't
So
be considered an
I think the scary scenario is if, let's say the scariest, I actually don't think it's scary, but the scariest scenario someone could probably imagine is if you issue a bond based on some expected level of property tax, because you're betting your money on some development to come in, and you underwrote a bond based on some annual revenue stream that you expected. I just want to very carefully clarify, no one would buy that, no investor would buy that bond, you can't underwrite that bond, no one would buy it based on what we think or anyone thinks will happen. Anything like that only happens based on money that you're able to show in the bank. So a bond would be issued, let's say, in year 3 or year 5, based only on that year 3 or year 5 stabilized revenue flow, not on what you think year 7 is going to be, or 8 or year 9. No one buy that bond. We certainly wouldn't recommend that the city issue that bond. So everything that you only can spend the money that you actually have. You can write a financing plan, certainly, that says this is what we plan to spend money on based on these development projections that we've put together, but that is a plan for action, and it does not obligate the city. It does not obligate, it's a plan.
Okay, I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's an important, very important point.
Any other questions for Joe?
One for Joe. You mentioned Laverne. They're what, 3 times the size of Buellton? 4 times?
Yeah, more.
Yeah. 8 times? Okay. And so has the EFID been a hard sell to get them to start that mechanism? To get it to start the project?
We started work on it in 2016, so 12-month, 18-month process. I'll be clear that an EIFD is very set up in a targeted area, so their area of the city is much larger. The area that we're talking about is like a series of blocks that the actual district is. But maybe the question is sort of like political considerations, getting a whole city behind it. Initially, it was just about education. It's a brand new tool, and the challenge has just been, number one, educating the people on the tool, but probably more importantly, showing them that it's not just the same old redevelopment anymore. Redevelopment agencies, it's not just about like raising money to fund big box retail or something like that. The game is way different this time. The game is all about infrastructure this time. So it's about education, showing them differences, but we had in Laverne a city manager who was very kind of behind the idea once he became educated, and certain leaders on the council that were sort of educating other council and the community about it. But yeah, I mean, public workshops, and this is just not the TOD specific plan. This was separate workshops just about this whole EIFD. They had good partners there in the University of Laverne, which has land in that area, so they have a vested interest. So in that case, it wasn't politically prickly, but that's one that's going forward. I mean, there are probably others around the state that are looking at it and are probably getting shut down because the community is not behind it.
Okay.
Those are just the success stories.
And the reason to include it in the specific plan is to leave it as an option. It may never come to fruition in the city, but the tool is there if anybody wants to use it.
Any other questions for Joe? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Wright. Irma?
All right, Irma. So I remember in the last meeting we had a rather lengthy conversation about the flexibility of the buildings on the medians, and essentially that the depictions of the medians weren't necessarily set in stone, and that things could, I hate to use the word come and go, but there was a lot of latitude. I don't see the language in the document or in the staff report reflecting said flexibility.
Let me see if I understand the question.
Sure.
That there's an indication, there's a implied indication that there's flexibility in what would be constructed, what buildings would be constructed on the median.
No. Sorry, I already asked a question. So in our last meeting, there was a lot of consternation, I guess, about what building would be put exactly where, in what position, and why that building was there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm pretty sure that there was a consensus that we needed to have a lot more flexibility as to what was going to be placed exactly at the median. The depictions of the median, as in the specific plan, were just illustrative, for example, kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong?
That's what we did. We took the buildings off the medians and we put in an appendix showing the potential buildings that could be used and they could be put anywhere.
Piece. Okay, we're on the same page.
Right.
But where's the language that matches up? Because I read through it. Maybe I'm missing it. Where's the language that indicates, like, look, these are illustrative, that was a good word, illustrative depictions, and that building placement, etc., is flexible and can be amended or adopted as we walk through the phases? Because I'm not seeing that kind of strict language.
Let me look through it. It is in the plan. Maybe you can continue and I will go through the plan.
You see what I'm trying to get at? Okay. All right. Second question. All right, the parking numbers. I was hoping we get a little more detail because they removed a bunch of diagonal parking.
Correct.
So that reduced the numbers. And you had that one slide, but it wasn't indicative of what the final numbers would be in regards to post-reduction of diagonal parking and what the assumed requirement for parking would be.
Okay. This slide reflects, I'm just reiterating, this slide reflects the best estimate of the amount of existing parking and the net gain that we would get with new parking installed per City Council direction to put in parallel parking. The final count is going to change slightly only because we're removing, subject to City Council action this evening to adopt the Planning Commission's recommendation. Should that be adopted, then we would remove the 3 truck recreational vehicle parking spaces in median 1 and use them probably for parallel parking. So those numbers, the total numbers would change maybe a few spaces.
Okay, so what is the assumed total? Now, I couldn't find it in the July draft, but in previous drafts, so some of us have been on working this a long time, there was an assumed total parking amount. Is that 327?
That's 327 is the total.
But that's existing plus net gain.
The net gain, the existing is 185.
Yeah.
And with all the reconfiguration and the parking that we're installing on median 2 and on median 4 and on median 1 as well, the total spaces public spaces that would be available, and we call it as non-exclusive spaces, but they're public spaces that could be public parking spaces, is best estimate somewhere in the neighborhood of 327.
I'm tracking all that.
Okay.
My question is, what is the parking requirement? Assume everything is built out. That is what we're going to build per the document based on every discussion. That's great.
With the potential.
But if all the commercial buildings go up and all the residential buildings go up and all this crap, I don't say crap, all these wonderful things. Sorry, I apologize for the video. What is the no joke parking requirement?
Okay.
I looked through the document. I didn't see that in the parking area. Because if it's 500, we're in trouble.
Well, part of that parking requirement would be for on-site parking to be built as part of the project. So and the amount of public parking that would be built would be determined as part of the or the amount of public parking that could be allocated towards the use by private development would be subject to the DOR incentive program. So it was difficult to put an estimate on how much actual public parking would be required at that point to support the level of build-out.
I'm tracking.
Okay.
There was a number though in previous drafts.
We had some numbers, and it was a moving target, and
so you just removed it.
You know,
I'm just trying to understand, because I have a feeling once the DOR kicks in and some of these projects come in, parking may be a negotiable term.
And I wanted to find it before I answered the question because I didn't totally remove it. We didn't totally remove it. It is in Chapter 3, page 59. And there is a baseline parking need of 1,067 spaces, a portion of which could be supported by the public parking.
Okay, so it's 4 times what we have essentially.
But this is the need for on-site parking per the code.
I'm completely tracking. And just from my last question, how many spaces were removed because of the removal of the vaginal parking? Just guesstimate, please. Hundreds?
No. I'm going to go into
I guess
40 to 50 maybe.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
It may not even be that high, but it was approximately in that region.
Okay. I apologize about coming across. I'm horribly sick, so if I'm coming across rude, it's
when you're done
it's
with
my
that,
cold of my head.
I do have an answer to your other
please.
question. On page 46 of the specific plan, which is public median building types, it says the following are optional building types that could be allowed in the public medians. These are considered specialty buildings that would require site-specific review and approval by the Planning Commission. Design styles may be selected from any style allowed in the specific plan area. Construction of these buildings are subject to the funding availability and need. We talk about an event barn, amphitheater, public restrooms, art and food. That is in
Chapter
3.
Page 46.
So that is the paragraph we put in as the optional building types, and then we show those buildings.
Sorry, I had to bring my print out.
And on that same page, we say that conceptual examples of some building types are shown on the following pages, and again it says optional structures, conceptual examples, and that additional building concepts are set forth in Appendix F.
Okay.
I knew it was in there somewhere.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And also on the district standards, and there are described similar language is put in that additional buildings may be built on the median subject to funding availability and need.
Okay. I have 2 more questions, so thank you everybody for bearing with me.
Of course.
Median 3, and I'm not gonna lie, Peggy brought this one to my attention. Why was the parallel parking removed?
The parallel parking.
Yeah, there used to be Now I can't speak to the version. Once again, I apologize. But there used to be, I want to say, there used to be parking along this median.
Along the median and stuff. I don't recall that we had median parking along that median.
I want to say that there was some sort of parking. Now, like I said, I'm not saying it was in the July draft.
No, I know there have been several drafts.
It's like year 5 of this for me or something. So, along the way, there used to be parking on all of the medians.
I am not recalling the parking on that specific area.
What would preclude us from putting? What is your thought process about precluding from putting parallel parking on this median?
I will take a first stab at it. I would also like to have Rose Hess weigh in on that as well. Part of it would be a safety issue. We wanted to keep the access to the medians as open as possible. And this particular median, because of the uses that are envisioned there, we wanted it to be visually available and accessible to the users. Didn't want to have the parking conflicting with any of the uses that were going to be held or taking place on the medians.
So, can you maybe just elaborate a little bit about a specific use on this median that the parking would conflict with? Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what I'm missing.
It's the main public area we want a lot of people gathering, such as the amphitheater and the town square. So we wanted more safety for pedestrians in that area because that's going to be the main focus of the downtown area.
Okay. On this median, another Peggy question, which I think is valid. Why is the amphitheater furthest away, the seating for the amphitheater furthest away from the bathrooms?
Why it isn't flipped?
Yeah, why is it not flipped? Why is the seating for the bathrooms not?
The amphitheater's to the left.
Yeah, So if you're sitting you're sitting by the street, you got to pass by the stage to get to the bathrooms.
I don't think we have that detail that it's directed one way or the other. It's just the area where it's going to be. If it needs to be flipped around so that people are by
so this is back to the. This is just a depiction.
Yeah,
Yes.
and initially we were looking at the grades on the median, and there was some grades that could lend themselves better to certain amphitheater design. So,
That's fine. Very last question. What was the planning commission thought process in deleting agrarian?
I think it was just they didn't
Yeah,
think
style
that
like
style
agrarian.
was a appropriate. I mean, we have it over in Crossroads, but we really don't have any agrarian style going along that particular
Yeah,
area.
but we are with the new big project. I'm having the Commons. Thank you very much.
That's not in the Avenue area. That's in the Contemporary Ranch area. So it's a little different architectural style. Area. It's separated by the freeway and
Separated by the freeway. It's good word. Good language, Mark. Okay. Thank you for dealing with me. I'm good. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Mercado, questions from you?
Yes. Why did they eliminate the parking for RVs totally? Because the reason I asked that is just this past Saturday, I went for a late lunch at Peace Anderson's at 2 o'clock, and there was 3 RV parking with big RVs with cars being towed behind them. So if you eliminate any parking like that for any people like that, they're not going to stop. So I don't think we need to. We shouldn't.
But that's a planning commission recommendation.
Right.
If the council feels it's necessary, if there's
I know we brought, and I agree with Foster because we brought it up a couple times, and when we were still both together in planning commission, that parking was going to be a big issue, and so I think it was kind of short-sighted by the planning commission in this instance to eliminate RVs and stuff like that. So that's my take on that. Joe answered my other 2 questions, so.
You're good right now.
I'm good for right now. But I think, people are traveling. And like I said,
and there are other options available that we have tried to pursue in the past, such as the Pea Soup Anderson property, that back area, trying to negotiate an easement and things like that. So there's always that's still on the table for discussion.
that and the elimination of wording for national chains in the specific plan. I think we don't want to, if someone wants to come in, we want to be more business friendly. To say that we don't want you just because you're a national chain, I think that's short-sighted. So, that's my comment.
All right. Councilmember King, questions?
Yeah, I painstakingly read this entire thing. On page 36, number 1, it says delete the agrarian architecture design style. And then on page 69, it contradicts itself. When it says,
As we mentioned, we did not, because this was an extensive document to change, we did not change this document based on the Planning Commission recommendations. We wanted to make sure the council agreed with the changes, and then when you get a second reading and you agree with removing the agrarian, we'll remove it from the specific plan, and then you'll have the adopted,
okay, well, it was still in here, so in my mind it contradicted itself. That I got answered. Okay, I have a little bit of an issue in making the Avenue of Flags one lane. The city of Solvang has hemmed itself in with one lane in each direction, and we all know that if you drive through the city of Solvang, they can't widen those lanes. They're stuck. So if we tried to increase, and I know there's a specific in here to increase the size of the medians from what they are right now in order to make it down into one lane. So if we do that, you build that, you're not going to change it, not in a million years. So I think that's one issue that should be taken into consideration, that if you think they're using Central now as a bypass and all those other roads, Damassa Road, everything else, especially when these 155 condos are finished, if people get onto Avenue of Flags and it is totally congested and the traffic's backed up from the 246 all the way up to Damassa Road, they're going to use side roads to get through there. So I don't think that's in my mind, that's not a good idea for us to increase that. Now, if you want to make it one lane, fine. Make it that one lane for now. But if you increase the size of the medians, you're not going to take those out so you can make it 2 lanes. It's going to forever be 1 lane on both sides. I know you want to make this more pedestrian friendly and people to walk around, which since I've been an adult driving a car, I don't think that I walk anywhere, nor does anybody else in California. Maybe in New York City, but not in California. So there's going to be an absolute impact on Avenue of Flags if you make it 1 lane in both directions. So I don't know about the rest of the council, but I think if you look at that, there was a Caltrans document in here that with the diversionary traffic, they didn't agree with our assessment of diversionary. Theirs was 60% of diversionary traffic on the side roads, which means people are going to use Central, they're going to use 2nd Street, however they can get off Avenue of Flags. Once you have developed this, that's what they're going to do. If you think it's crowded on Central now, it will be absolutely impacted.
But our traffic consultant and our staff disagrees with Caltrans and their analysis. They don't follow the same procedures, and we feel there's not going to be an issue, but we will study Central as the Planning Commission recommended as development occurs. Because development's going to occur whether or not there's a specific plan and there will be traffic on the avenue. And that's what we will look at as development occurs in any case.
Well, I agree with you, but I would say that regardless of any study, common sense would tell you that if you have 1 lane in both directions, that is going to be adversely impacted. Especially if you put residential on this.
Correct, but it's 1 lane at this point.
I understand that, but my point is that if we increase the size of the medians to where you can only have 1 lane in each direction, if you have a traffic impact, you are not going to be able to fix it. You're stuck with the medians being as wide as they are, especially if you develop on them, and then you cannot make 2 lanes in both directions. This is what happened to Solvang. The other one. There is on page 108. Page 108. Let me get to that, and I want to have you explain that specific. There was a on a general plan, it calls for 163 units. But within this document, it says that you could put 326 units and a commercial. Am I correct in that?
Yes, general plan build out, the avenue as is would have the 163 and the 222.
But then our specific plan says
you can increase it potentially to 326 and 297.
Right.
And that's just for the greenhouse gas analysis in the initial study.
But we could do that. We could entice a developer to come in and build 326 units. Is that correct?
Theoretically.
Okay. And the water impact and the sewer impact, I didn't see any specific numbers that if we did that, what kind of impact that would have on water and sewer. It was just basically general. Is there any study that we have done on commercial use or residential use, especially if we put this 326 mixed-use units on there?
Our Public Works Director, Rose Hess, has analyzed that, and we're able to accommodate the build-out of the specific plan as well as the general plan with the water and sewer capacity we have.
Well, the only thing it referenced was 800 acre feet on that. But was there any specific plan, let's say, if you put those in there, what kind of impact that would have on that number?
No, we're looking at estimating quantities based on just generalizations of the land use. So based on that, we have adequate supply available for that.
So correct me if I'm wrong. We have a reserve of that 800 for the towns that exist right now.
Right.
Correct? What kind of reserve would you have if you build this out?
I don't know off the top of...
Because we're putting 155 townhouses on McMurray. We just put 63 units on Avenue of Flags.
Right.
And now we're potentially putting, if somebody comes in and we let them do it, 326 units plus commercial. Is there a specific number we could get for that? How that would affect and impact our water and sewer?
Right, I can report back to you on that specific information.
The other one I had is on page 121. I'm sure I'm boring everybody to death.
Important stuff.
Is 25 units per acre already in our HOZ?
Yes, that is the standard in the Affordable Housing Overlay Zone.
Okay. Okay. Okay, the other one that kind of stuck out of me here is that if we build this out, and this is on page 130, and this goes along with my one lane in each direction, is that there's a potential increase of 4,399 daily trips. Is that a correct number?
I would have to look in the traffic section, but they base their analysis on that, and that would be maximum build out. But there'd still be a large number without the specific plan when this area would be maximum build out.
Right. So, getting back to my one lane in each direction, does anybody in this room think that that's adequate?
Yes.
One.
There's actually more traffic at the Crossroad Village.
Yes, and our traffic consultant has looked at the numbers and determined that the configuration that we're proposing is adequate for the number of trips.
Now, we spent years discussing 2 lanes, Dave. Literally years.
Well, I can already tell you that the project that we did across the street from Albertsons has already adversely affect the traffic flow in the city of Buellton. Now, if we're going to build this out and we're going to have 4,000 trips per day, I don't think that 2 lanes is adequate just by common sense, regardless of whether you have a study or not. Because I'm going to tell you that you're going to sit at those traffic lights on either Avenue of Flags, going in either direction. You're going to sit in those traffic lights, especially when during a high flow, and I don't know what your discussion was, I wasn't privy to that. But those traffic lights are not going to let 50 cars go through at once. You're going to sit, and you're going to wait for the light cycle, and then you sit and wait for the light cycle, and you sit and wait for the light cycle again. And that's what happens when you build out in a specific area. I've lived in Los Angeles. I've driven through Santa Monica. I think that we have to take into consideration that some people can go straight on Avenue of Flags and go down and get on the 101 from Santa Rosa Road. Some people can make a left-hand turn and get on at 246. But if you pinch them into one lane at that intersection, you're going to sit in multiple cycles of that traffic light. And that's just common sense. I don't care what your study said.
But that occurs whether or not we have a specific plan or not based on our traffic study.
I understand that, but traffic studies don't necessarily always, they may say, oh, this is adequate. Sometimes when you say a parking lot is adequate and then it's built and then you go, well, this sucks just because it met somebody's standard or somebody's code. I would just really recommend that we do not hem ourselves into one lane indefinitely and permanently. That's all I have for now.
Vice Mayor Andresic, questions?
Well, one thing I would like to request, given the conversation we've had with Central in the traffic, can we make the current traffic count for Central, both north and southbound, from Central at Avenue of Flags to Highway 246? That's just as far as we need to go. Don't need to get on. I don't know how we could segregate that there, but it would be good for us to know if we could have that on our website, so people, if they're concerned, we had a concerned person today. The traffic on, we've had comments about it's been speed on Central, not the number. It's been the speed. If we could maybe mark that for time now before anything is basically taking a major change. So it's a barometer for how is it working.
We're planning to do counts before the specific plan is implemented.
Do we have any now?
We do have some now. We did take some recent.
Yeah, we have some.
Count,
right, we do have that info.
Bars out there. Well, I'd like to ask you, probably sooner than later, at least start with a number, identify where that'd be our baseline, I guess.
Absolutely.
Because for people that want to say this wasn't a good idea, we could say, well, here was the baseline before we started the specific plan.
Any other questions?
Heck no.
Okay. Well, I've asked most of...
Who's going to pay for this? That's what I was going to ask.
Joe told you.
You didn't even tell us.
Joe told you. I had a session with Irma earlier, asked a lot of questions, and I'm going to hold off most of my... I have comments. I've got a lot of comments. I don't have so many questions. I just have comments. So I'm going to open up a public hearing on this. I've got 2 speaker slips. If anybody else wishes to speak on it, now's the time to fill out your slip right over there, and we'll get you up to. The first speaker is going to be Kathy Vreeland. It's supposed to be 3 minutes. If you go a little bit longer, this is an important subject.
I think there should be.
I do
Mr.
have
Connor has.
Mr. Connor's here too.
Okay.
Can she see her? You got enough
Can you see?
Yeah, I'm good. I can see. I can see clearly. Okay.
Maybe not even there, just back.
So I've got a little handout real quick. Good evening. Sorry, Kathy Vreeland with the Buellton Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau. I'll try to make this quick. I'm a visual person, so I'm looking through the plan, and of course I've sat through the visioning process. I've been to Planning Commission, I've been to City Council, so I've been very involved, I feel, in the process, and on the Economic Task Force where we've had conversations. The biggest thing that we're here for tonight is to discuss the architectural design. That's all I'm really here for, because I think it's very, very important in creating an identity for Buellton. I put some things together, just 3 little sheets. They're super visual. I'll pass them around here in a second to you guys. But I want you to think about our neighboring communities. They're all identifiable by their architectural design. If I say San Ynez, you think what? Western. If I say Solvang, you see Danish. If I say Los Olivos, it's Victorian. When I say Buellton, hodgepodge. Is that a good identity to go with? I don't think so. When we're branding, we did with the visioning, we tried to do a branding process, and we all sat there kind of with a dumb look on our face because we're like, well, I don't know. What are we? How do we brand Buellton? So it's a very, very difficult thing, but I think solving is what it is because it is that one design. So it is unique. I think if we continue to strew a bunch of designs on the avenue, this is our last ditch effort to get something right here and get our architectural design right to create a really cool identity for Buellton. And I'll give you some ideas that we'd like to see that I think would work with the history of Buellton, with the fact that the avenue used to be the 101. It was a throughway for automobiles. It was the stopping point for people to come and go as they're traveling. Anyhow, I'll pass this around. When I read the architectural designs, I know at the Planning Commission they narrowed it down to two. It was Art Moderne and Craftsman. And then I read through this and I see Monterey Revival and Art Deco and all this stuff. And then underneath Art Deco, it says eclectic variations may combine agrarian, ranch, industrial, and international design. So now we're up to about 9 different designs that we could have on the avenue all next to one another. I think we need to be very, very mindful of what we're putting out there or allowing out there and what it's going to look like. So Google, love Google, pull it up, Art Moderne, agrarian, Art Deco, whatever you want, it's all there to see. And try to create a little district, try to create a neighborhood with all those designs smushed together, and what does it look like? So we have to be, and I'm telling you I'm passionate about it, so that's why I'm doing this, I've been in the process for so long, because I truly feel Buellton has an identity problem, and I think we can correct that, I think we can create that. I know there's some existing buildings out there, and people say, what are you going to do with those? But you know what, through paint, through signage, through lighting, there are some ways that you can incorporate this feel. What design is it I'm looking at? I'm looking at like a 50s era, maybe a retro look, right? Look at the front page. I talk about Art Deco, Art Moderne. These are different styles. Monterey Revival, Agrarian, Craftsman. If you start putting all those next to one another, what in the world is so interesting about it? It's a hodgepodge. It doesn't do anything for anybody to say, I really want to go visit that place. Turn the page to the retros 50s era. Think about Buellton. Thinking about identity for Buellton. The colors are bright. They pop. We have a retro hip look. There's lights. There's neon. You can do the bike share program. I know the Commons wants to do that. Look at the cool bikes there, you know, that you can have colorful. Look at flying flags. We have Mendenhalls. We have Oliveras. We have Ellen's Pancake House. We have so much of that going. We have some great bones already on the avenue. Some really good structure. Yes, there is some dilapidated places, none of us disagree with that, but I think there is potential. Now, I'm not saying you have to make everything look just like this. I'm just looking at the colors. I'm looking at some of the features, some of the ways that you can incorporate that look and feel. It doesn't have to be every single thing, but and Foster's looking at me like I'm off my rocker and I'm crazy, but the next page, you know, I talk a little bit about all of these things are making a comeback. When you look at it in millennials' houses now and look at styles and things, fashions are coming back, housing, dining room sets, all of that retro look is coming back in home furnishings, record players, vinyls, who still got them, you know, Bee Gees, let's put it on and listen to it. I mean, anyhow, there's all these, you know, the bikes, the scooters, it's just a huge comeback, and I think we have such a potential to stand out in the valley. I think we have huge potential to think outside of the box on this one, to put Buellton on the map for that retro, cool, hip town in the Central Coast, in the San Ynez Valley, that's going to draw people now. We've got something to attract people. It can be worked with. I think it can be worked in with what we already have going on, again, with colors, with signage, or whatnot. If you start putting a mishmash of designs out there, you've lost your identity. You've lost it. And you have no potential to get it back, because that's our last developed area we can do. You've lost it. So that's my plea to you. I encourage you to think really hard about what our identity could be, how Buellton could be cutting edge for generations to come by thinking outside of the box and not becoming another Everytown America. Let's stand out. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hey, Madam Mayor, if I could address the Art Deco. Art Deco includes the Art Moderne and the 50s diner. That's what we want, and that's we think is a design style. It says agrarian under one of the items, but it's part of the Art Deco. It's not an agrarian building. It's not a
we've pretty much taken agrarian out of the...
That is correct. Yeah. So it's the 3 potential styles, not a mishmash of 5.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker.
Which one?
Craftsman
Monterey Revival and Art Deco, which includes 50s Diner as well as Art Moderne.
Okay. Next speaker up, Mr. Don Connor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councilman, for the time. I know that the avenue-specific plan, in many ways, for the planning staff and planning commission and council is somewhat a thankless job. You can't make everybody happy in the entire process, and there's obviously a lot of competing ideas and thoughts. One of the main points I just wanted to communicate, and actually very similar to Kathy Vreeland's main point, is the design aspects. Being a developer, developing the Commons project on McMurray Road, we obviously want to see the avenue flourish and do well. All boats rise with high tide, and we recognize that the avenue is an important component. With that being said, we also would reiterate a single design style be chosen on the avenue, and not having multiple styles. Two is one too many. It needs to be a single style. Again, when you look at the success of the other communities around you, Salting is a perfect example with their 1.5 million visitors a year. They're not coming to see anything but Danish architecture. And I think it's a very, very important component. As a developer, looking at the avenue, by focusing on a single design style, regardless of the other comments of traffic or parking or what have you, focusing on a single design style takes off the table, for me as a developer, a risk of me designing and building a project and having projects on either side of me not being matching to my development. And if you're trying to focus the area to be a community gathering spot, to be a social district, that cohesion is hugely important for placemaking and socialization. And when you look at the opportunities you have, I mean, where else, anywhere on the Central Coast, do you have so many commercial acres available to be developed right off Highway 101 in a city that is fairly pro-growth and pro-development? So there's a tremendous opportunity here. And to be very fair, everything on the avenue, with the exception of really just Kerry Moriarty's development, that is a craftsman style development, is really all tear down. There's nothing there that a developer is going to keep, especially doing high density or doing a mixed use project. So everything will be scrapped. To that point, whether it's a 1950s style or it's a craftsman style, whatever the style, I would impress upon it being a single design style as being hugely, hugely important to the process. Again, I know it's a thankless job across the board, and the staff and the city has put a tremendous amount of time in this, and really is appreciated. As Kathy mentioned, there's a tremendous opportunity here, and I think for the city as well as all of its residents, a tremendous opportunity to really identify Buellton as something special, which it is. And I think, I hopefully look forward to seeing the focus being a single design style. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your interest in our town. Next speaker up, Peggy Brierton.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Sierra and council members. Boy, that was great to hear. I would love to have a single style, but that's not been the direction that either the Planning Commission or staff or council has wanted to go to. Part of the problem is that we do have Mission, and Red Rose Court's not going anywhere. There is Houston's, they're right smack in the middle. I really doubt Houston's will be going anywhere. That's Mission, it's part of our downtown. So if you do one, what are you going to do? Mission, Danish, Western, Agrarian, or Craftsman, because they're all there. So, I think staff has done an excellent job in trying to find something to kind of pull everything together. I would say Craftsman should be probably the dominant. I actually think Monterey is kind of, in some ways, connected to Craftsman as well. I think the balconies can be an interesting component to downtown. The problem with both Craftsman and even Monterey is basically they're only two-story. So if you're going to be going to 50 feet, a building, potentially, is it going to be a Craftsman? Is it going to be what? That's the problem. So I appreciate all these comments on this, and I'm not going to go any further than that. I think I think Monterey's a good good fit to it, but again, it's really two-story. So I would like staff to explain what they would see as a taller building, probably Art Deco. I would suggest that the Art Moderne style be contained to the 1st and 6th district, because they're definitely lower scale. You're not going to have those tall buildings. So I think that it needs a good discussion. I think it really definitely is an important aspect of our community. And downtown, huge. So now, can I move on to parking just here real quickly? I'm concerned about median 2 and the parking that runs along in front of Vintage Walk. It's diagonal right now. So you would have diagonal parking on both sides as traffic comes down. This is just not a safe situation for bicyclists or pedestrians or cars or anybody. So the rest of the parking configuration I approve of, but the diagonal parking on that second median facing Vintage Walk should be parallel. So I would also recommend that you for exactly the same reasons that Irma gave for the safety of the town plaza, I would say the parking along the town plaza is what's safe. You have traffic on both sides. It's an island in the middle of moving traffic, and it's a slim island. So by placing parking along both sides of the median there, the town plaza, third median, you're going to actually be able to incorporate areas where you can have event trucks and vehicles pulling up and broadening it as an event venue. I think the people on the plaza need protection, and it needs to be more than bollards. It needs to be more than trees, and also it gives you a little more parking. Anyway, so that's that. And let me see if there was I think an important question that Councilmember King brought up is that I truly do believe that we need to cap the amount of homes that can be built in this area. That's just way too many. 300 and whatever it was. We've got already the 62 apartments there. I mean, it's just way too many. So I understand the door program, but I think you need to put a cap on that. I long ago proposed two-way roadways on both sides. You get another extra lane, but we're all past that as far as I understand. So I'm trying to work with a plan that has been moving forward. It's not been my plan. It's not been my choice. I think that we can make this work, but you know, I think there's only one other thing I would definitely like to mention is that I talked to a few council members about this, and I would like it put into the specific plan that no building structure in the middle of our central plaza, and so from the bathrooms to the south to the south into 2nd Street, no structural building. If the plaza should be a plaza and not grass, I think it should be cobblestone, you know, usable. So, and structures will come later, so we'll talk about those later at a later date. You could, as my understanding is, you can say, well, you want this structure or that structure. I'd like you to add a community hall to that instead of a possible events barn. So just keep that in mind, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. This is the last speaker. If anybody else wants to speak, now is your time to fill out the form. Debbie Oquist, please step up.
Hi, I'm a local homeowner, and I appreciate all the work you guys have been doing. I have a couple questions. I'm trying to follow this as Avenue of the Flags used to be 101. The semis come down there. I agree with Dave. We shouldn't make the medians bigger. Even if we have a national disaster or something, we have to think about that. The traffic is logically going to go off onto Central and 2nd. I live off of 2nd. And there's a lot of traffic. And I do it too. Did you guys consider the semis coming off the freeway? Are you trying to discourage the semis? And what about all the kids that are going to be moving into these new homes? Do we have the infrastructure in our schools? Because we have Industrial Way being developed. We have the bowling alley area being developed, from what I understand. There's housing going into there.
Yeah, I can speak to the schools. They're actually at a budget shortfall because of a lack of students. So
Okay, but are we figuring that out? Like the water problem, are you guys balancing it out that you don't have an answer for the water? That's basic. With what we're building.
We do have an answer for the water, just not to the level of detail that Dave is
That's what we need to be thinking of. Because I know you guys have put a lot of time into it. I've been around this area 20 years. I'm a homeowner now for 2 or 3. I've lived in this area 5. There's just little things like that are huge in my mind. Are you trying to discourage the semi trucks getting off the freeway? Do we not want the semis or the RVs to come into town? Do I have an answer to that question?
We do. That's one of my comments. Yeah, we do. We were trying to push. P. Soup Anderson's has offered at one point, if we took care of the parking lot, that they would allow the semis and RVs to park
coming
there.
down the road. They're not going to be able to come down the road when we have a festival safely.
If I may.
Okay.
In Median 1 is our travelers district where the card lock is for the trucks, so we're hoping they come to that area and then take Damasa back to the freeway.
Hoping. You don't want them to spend the night here like they do? Park like the RVs do?
We do. I've had complaints from residents up at Vintage Walk, though, with the trucks parked there, the refrigerator trucks with the motors running all night. So if we can get them down into a prime location at P. Soup Anderson's, they'd still have access on and off the freeways. We don't want to lose them.
And we are looking at options.
We have a huge parking problem right now with the avenue. We're trying to address that.
Right, and I know I see what's going on.
The semis and the RVs are part of the same, are different version of the same problem.
And I'm an avid bicyclist, and I did mention to somebody in the planning department, which I think I helped, is when the bicyclers have their races, nobody ever asked them to pick up the stuff on the arrows. And that's littering. So they put it into the contract, one of the gals over there, and Solvang also implemented it. So when the people have their bike races, they have to remove those stickers on the ground as part of their agreement. And they said yes. But nobody ever asked them before. So I just want to let you know
questions are good, and we truly appreciate you participating.
Okay, thank you.
It's important. Thank you. Thank you very much. If there are no other speakers, I'm going to close public hearings, bring it back to council for comments. I'm going to get mine in first, since if that's okay. I've got actually quite a few. Yeah, I got the gavel. I am concerned about the traffic problem. You know, we've had our studies that say everything's going to be fine, but everything was supposed to be fine with our new development and with McMurray, and we're having problems there. So I am concerned about that. I have been asked by a resident, and I do believe that on chapter 3, page 3, and on 13, that we should be able, I realize that I'd like to put, say on, chapter 1, page 13, B 1.4, it says establish strong connections through effective streetscape and architectural design. I was asked if we could put the word quality in it, and I agree.
Which page? I'm sorry.
Okay, chapter 1, page 13, B 1.4.
Okay.
I know quality is
that's easy to do.
very basic, but I think that would be something really important. Let's see, the 50-foot high, I think, would that be the Art Deco if we went with 50-foot high buildings?
That would be my guess.
Probably Art Deco.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a chapter on which kind of trees we would put in, and I would hope that, first of all, I know we had talked at length about trees and pots and bushes and flowers. We want these trees to get really nice and big, like they've been in Buellton forever, and I think that they have to be in the ground to do that. I think you could put flowers and shrubs in pots, but if a tree is going to grow I think it's nice to have it in the ground, and I'd really like to see, even though I see you have a holly oak tree in there, which is one of my personal favorites, native trees would be something I think would probably be nicer.
We will talk to our landscape architect, but sometimes the native oaks and the sycamores don't do good in an unnatural landscaped area, so that's why we have these here. But we will check on that.
That makes sense. Gosh, I've got a bunch of them. The residents, I understand with DOR that there's a give and take there, but I hope that that council might have some type of participation in it. That it wouldn't be just a planning commission decision to go.
Development Opportunity Reserve is financial, and
so that goes through council.
Through council.
Okay. Gosh, what else? I agree. I thought we had taken the diagonal parking where it was on both sides. I thought we had taken that out because council had agreed that that was a real potential traffic problem.
On median 3?
Median 2.
Medium 2.
Where it's on
well, on any of the mediums, to have 2 diagonal parkings where you could have 2 cars backing out.
On Vintage Walk and on the median.
Yeah.
I think that's what she's talking about. Peggy's.
On median 2. On median 3, I like the idea of the parallel parking on both sides. I love the idea that perhaps we could have food trucks or something at some of these events that could just pull up with the parallel parking by medium 3. And then I'm going to throw this out again. I know that, it's been brought up, I brought it up once before, and I guess there's some kind of, city's getting a different message than I've been getting from the business owners down on median 5, Mother Hubbard's and Gino's Pizza. When I was in Park City, they had build-outs into the street. You know, it was like a wood patio. And you could put parking for the Western wear and for the market in between and build out maybe a patio where they could put lights out. The whole idea is that people are walking around and that they're enjoying it. We'd get rid of that or discuss getting rid of the parking barrier there. And I know that our corner lot, he was concerned about parking, but I don't know why he couldn't have a little parking lot inside his business too.
But other businesses also did not want to lose. And we had we had a meeting with them, and they told us they...
And see, John McDermott from Mother Hubbard's tells me that that's what he really, really wants. And Gino's, we've helped them with their outdoor seating.
Well, Gino's was the one who told us they did not want to lose the parking.
Is that right? And see, Mr. Garcia told me he did like it. So I guess there's
the specific plan has options for both, so we could go either direction on there.
The planning commission, more than one occasion, pushed to have that barrier removed.
Yes. Okay. And we met with business property owners, and they did. They wanted to
I want to say it was more like trigger-cated, but
because if we did remove the median, we'd be losing 5 spaces, and the businesses did not want to lose 5 spaces in that
Well, that's
area.
why if you still had the parallel parking in between these decks, you could still have some parking there. And the koi pond could have a parking lot within his own property.
And there's nothing in the specific plan that would preclude changing that median design.
Okay.
But we tried to keep both options in to try to make
Everybody happy. And see, it's the same thing as when I talk to Caltrans and they say one thing and City is saying something else, and it's very confusing. So I think that's I think that's all I had. Again, the pea soup parking, I think that's really important that the city pursue that. I don't really like the idea of the trucks parking in median 1. Because as people are coming out off the freeway, that's their first view of Buellton. Welcome to Buellton, and we have these cargo trucks parked there. If we can get them into Pea Soup Anderson's and make that lot look nicer too, I just think that would be my first choice. So
I'll get a letter back into Pea Soup and see if we can start up the discussions again.
Thank you very much. Those are my comments. Any other comments?
Go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead, Foster.
You guys count. I'm interested to hear what everyone says.
Well, I don't know that we have any consensus on what the style is going to be. I think that's still up in the air. And one thing I read here on this Art Deco on page 169 is eclectic variations may combine agrarian, ranch, industrial, international design elements, typical flat roofs, parapets, spires, tower-like constructions used to accent corner benches. Well, to me, that sounds hodgepodge. That sounds to me like you can just shove almost anything you want in there. So I think that in order for us to go forward with this, as had been pointed out by two people in the audience, that we need to have a direction rather than go to a developer and go, hey, we've got these 5 different styles that you can put in here, and then, you know, you shove in a ranch house on one side and then you put a 50s diner next to it. I mean, would that be acceptable to you? I highly doubt it. Right. So I think to the point that if we're going to attract people here, and I've been a very big advocate of putting 50s diner style on Avenue of Flags because, one, our kids have never seen this because most of those are gone, torn down, and a Walmart put up. And I think that style of building for Avenue is like what Kathy pointed out, is very retro. And it's something that people could say, hey, like Solvang, hey, let's go to the old Danish village of Solvang. Or let's go to that really cool retro-looking Avenue of Flags in Solvang and then stay in some of those hotels in the same token. We put up another one, so we want to try to get those occupied. So I think that we have to narrow this down to something instead of just saying, well, you know, whatever. Because if a guy could come in and put bat and board up on a building, which is much cheaper, correct? Okay, he's going to do that. And that's what's happened over in that Crossroads project. Bat and board is cheap, and that's why they put it up. So if we allow a developer to do that, they're going to, because they're going to save money. So I think that going forward with this, the council needs to give direction of what we're going to do on Avenue of Flags. Finished.
So so just a quick comment on your 2 items. So I do think parallel parking and median 3 should be allowed. So I think you and I agree on that. And I definitely agree with Dave. If we could form consensus today on a one style, I agree on that. Now I think just to give you some background, Dave, the reason 50s, we added 50s in the Planning Commission a couple of years ago because we thought it added style and grace. I will tell you, when we had the visioning meeting 5 years ago, the city populace did not like the Art Deco 50s diner, and that's why the agrarian and craftsmen are there. And so therein lies the rub. So, you know, just FYI. Now, that being said, I like 50s diner too. At the same time, I like agrarian, so I wouldn't mind if the whole thing looked agrarian, in my opinion, or contemporary ranch like the Firestone area, because that's what we look like. That's what our town looks like, and if they can make it really contemporary, like the Commons did, or something like that, I think that could be acceptable. Now, that being said, I'm open. I just think there should be one style. And I agree with Mr. Connor. So those are my formative conclusions. So if we could all agree on one architectural style, I think that'd be good. I don't know if you want to facilitate or the mayor.
Well, I need to see what's one style that council members want. We'll put it in the plan.
I mean, I agree with everyone what they said, but I also, like Foster said, we've had numerous public workshops at the Planning Commission, and everybody kept throwing everything out. Well, we can't have this. Well, we want to have this. We're right. We have the Rose Court. We have Houston's. We have some other things there. Dan's right. 90% of that stuff is tear down.
But remember,
until you get to the
but we have Vintage Walk and as well as the Buellton Apartments. This was more craftsman.
Of course, you're not going to see that too much once it's built out on the avenue.
Except for Vintage Walk.
Well, Vintage Walk, yeah. So perhaps we go with something like Art Deco, Art Moderne, with the... I think when we brought up 50s Diner to everybody, they just saw Flo's Cafe. And
Art Deco includes Art Moderne and 50s Diner.
So if we go with Art Deco, and then if there's any designs that come in that kind of tie next to red rose court, something that you could use Art Deco with a little bit of mission in it. I've been given lots of photographs of different types where there's combinations too, that perhaps that would be the way to go. You know, if you build next to Vintage Walk, you try to keep it Art Deco, but you throw in some other piece that helps tie the two together. I don't know.
We could take a look at that and see if we can get some type of wording like that.
I think we need to pick one. I hate to allow edge cases, because then everything becomes an edge case. That's just my opinion.
I'm going to say when we cut the ribbon at Vintage Walk, I don't think I've ever had anyone complain about the looks of that building. Vintage. Where the building is. And picking one, that's one that could easily be single story, 3-story, because of the size of the lots. They're irregulars. The comments that I had written in, and I favor Craftsman. I know I've heard other things. I don't have a problem with giving people 2, but I think you have a lot more flexibility with Craftsman for aesthetics and the curb appeal, because that's what we want. What I wrote down is we've got to give emphasis to make things happen. We need funding.
Yeah.
Someone's going to have to talk about. We're sitting here. Dreamscape, where's the money going to come from? The plan needs to be approved, so we can always modify it, but we got to be careful about that. But I think I'm not really, I'm not convinced. But we don't have anybody in hand saying this is what I want to do. So if you want to set one, set the Craftsman. It's flexible. When we talk about an identity, Buellton has always been considered a 101 stop, and we're either going to invite people or we're going to drive them away. Because we've got one of the very few towns along Central Coast where we have north and south on and off ramps. So people know they can bring their big rigs in. And we need to work on accepting that. But to strive to develop everything for the traveler. Pea Soup established the identity of what Buellton is. Every time you talk to somebody, they say Pea Soup. It doesn't need to be Pea Soup. I've been very happy with the moderations that we have, but that's off the beaten path. Our beaten path is Avenue of Flags.
What kind of decor is Pea Soups, would you say, Irma?
50s.
Yeah, I would say more Danish.
Danish.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Danish. Carved woods, and that's what they had. Fred Sorensen did the carvings for a lot of their booths. But remembering to protect the population, and we don't want to create something that's going to get people upset the reality of residential in the city. So it's a lot of factors. We're doing a specific plan saying bring these along with these ideas, and I don't have a bit of problem with Craftsman because I favor it. I definitely have a problem with the curve and the neon, those sort of things. I don't see that stacking so well. I see Craftsman being put in, not looking like a cookie cutter. I don't like the block look of Art Moderne. I'm afraid that's going to go back into the archives once it's lived its turn. When you look at these pictures that Kathy's given us, that the most appealing is the soft look of Craftsman versus the hard look Agrarian. At the prices we're going to be charging, Agrarian isn't going to want to be vertical. And people are looking for the investors are going to want to build a quality project, and I think that got started on Vintage Walk. So the comments I had, we're going to protect our population. We've got to keep the service industries. That's what we are. We're not. Peggy, don't listen to this because I like Service Town USA. That is a wonderful identity, but to let people know that they can come and stop and get and go. And we've made it easy, and I've regretted destroying the two-lane, the Avenue of Flags. It was put together for a reason, and we've had a lot of success with it. And I think people don't want to go back. They don't want to make it that is not a bike. We have bicycles there, but it is not a bike community. It is an automobile community. So, and we do have 7 gas stations, and I think that is a big plus for people traveling. And if you don't, the people that travel the state know where they can get on and get off. And it was just up on the way to Sacramento, went through Wesley. It was nothing but gas stations. That was horrible. That you can't get good. You don't have a blend of all of the things people are looking for. We've got some quality inns here. We've got food preparation, unique. Within 1 mile in this town, there's 1 square mile of Buellton. That's the other thing people need to know what we're trying to work around. We have 1 square mile to house 5,000 people and bring in groups to give us commerce. So I just put those couple of sentences together to promote the travelers' needs, and I think we would have a viable product.
I like the Art Deco, I like the flat roofs, and I like the idea of balconies. Because someday we're going to have things going on the avenue that people are going to want to come out on balconies to watch and sit on top of rooftops.
And that's one of the reasons that Craftsman and Art Deco were put together as 2 styles that could be complementary in the avenue.
It's more. And balconies are wonderful. Until 100 people.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Do we have a consensus at all?
On Craftsman? Is that what the question is?
Or any architectural style?
I like the Art Deco. Vice Mayor likes the Craftsman.
I just remember in both divisioning and anytime anybody brought up Bologna, and everybody said we don't want Vegas. So it was a hard thing to come up. I know we talked about it up to 9 times in planning.
Do you know, I said the same thing, but then I got kind of educated on what Art Deco was, and it's not Vegas.
South Beach, Miami.
Yeah, Miami, yeah.
Well, so the 3 of us have caught on style. Maybe you guys could provide your input on style, because I'm sick and I'd like to go home.
Yeah. I have no problem with either the Craftsman or the Art Deco. Like I said, we went through a lot of this. We have Agrarian over at Final Performance, and I think that's enough over there. Okay. I think we need to.
So if you had to pick one,
Craftsman.
Okay. Dave.
I'm leaning a little bit more towards Art Deco, as long as in this verbiage it's taken out this
eclectic variation.
Yes, eclectic variation. And if it'll have a theme like South Beach, Miami, what you're talking about is very cool what they've done there. Then I would go with that. But having a hodgepodge style, I would be opposed to.
I'm gonna go for that.
Okay.
South Beach.
Is it out of the realm to go to 2? I mean, we had speakers believing 2.
That is up to the council.
Can the 2 be combined?
They look like they would be compatible.
I would vote against that as well, because if you look at the Craftsman style, it looks like modern apartment complexes.
Yeah. Okay. I think we just got to make a decision. I don't think this one gets better with time.
No, and we've got to move. It's been going on for how long now?
Almost 10 years.
Well, it sounds like there's consensus, regardless of my opinion. It sounds like there's consensus for the Art Deco. But I think you need to it sounds like we need to soften it a little bit from the neon glitz.
Yes, we will soften it, and when it comes back for the second reading, it will have, you can adjust it as well at that time.
Perfect. Alrighty. Consensus? Everybody? Irma, you kind of got an idea? I don't know, are we going to adopt it tonight? Or?
We're hoping for the introduction and first reading.
What about the parallel parking on the median 3?
That's what I was going to try
Okay.
First, the planning commission to eliminate the parking in median 1 for the trucks. Is that a consensus? Okay with everyone?
On median 1, as you're coming off the freeway from the north, southbound.
And you no issue with?
David, I think there's consensus anyway. I mean, I'm not.
No, I'm saying is if you proofread that and remove the word agrarian out of all of this.
Oh yes,
as
we'll
we
make
go through
it.
this, it
Yes,
is littered in
yes.
this document.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Wait.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure lighted flashing crosswalk signs is an option. The stop signs is just something to look at.
An option.
Local and regional uses encouragement. I know we had one that was not in favor of
I just
that.
think you're limiting yourself.
It's encouraged.
Yeah, that's what
It's encouraged.
It should be encouraged.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's
I
fine.
think
And
that-
the double diagonal parking is gone.
is that yes. On which median?
Two.
Two.
And parallel parking on median 3.
Okay, if we could just, for the moment, take a look at median 2. Currently, we have, let's take a look at the top image.
Vintage Walk.
We have Vintage Walk, which is on the lower portion of that top image. That currently has existing parallel parking, which we would not be able to remove unless,
Angled parking.
Did I say yes? It's got
angled.
sorry, now I misspoke. It's got diagonal parking, and they do have 26 spaces that are allocated to that. We can't remove the diagonal
I
parking.
don't need that moved in front of Vintage, just on the median.
So, and that median 2 was the median that we were looking at for providing the most parking. That's where we would get the most benefit for parking and flex space for event space. Which is
removing the large number of spaces.
I thought we would do the parking on the median, inside the median.
That's an opportunity as well to do
That's
this.
You drive into it and you drive out, and then you have a performance area when you want to perform.
Yeah, so
and still have a traffic pattern.
So the problem with that though is when you have a performance and you remove the parking, then where are they all going to park?
Along the freeway. No, they always find they come to the bicycle race and they find they get 600 cars here for the bicycle race.
I just think that's a safety issue.
I'm opposed to that, so that's my
We'll put parallel parking on the other side and
then if
we'll
we
just do
need
it.
to do some parking inside the median. I know that takes parking spots away, and I'm probably going to lose our beautiful city property to parking down the line because of that, but that's just not safe, having 2 diagonals where people are pulling out.
All right, I believe.
If I could just clarify on that, if we were able to find a way to put the parking inside
The median? Absolutely. I don't have a problem. I thought that's what we were going to do.
That would give you could go back to 2 lanes of traffic in that area. That's such a busy.
We will address it. And
Okay, see what we can do.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think that is it, and then so we need a resolution, motion, and action, and then ordinance.
Two separate actions.
Yes.
Got it.
Mayor, can I make one more? I agree with Ed's vision that he's had for a long time, probably as long as I've been on this council, is making one of those medians into a parking district. You're going to have 1,000 cars associated with this project.
And it's in the. We have that in the specific plan for parking districts to address that as development moves forward. So that we've taken Vice Mayor Andriesek's call to arms on parking districts, and we have it in this document, so it will be there as an item.
And farmers market.
Yes.
Car shows.
Yes. Right.
Without gopher holes.
No gopher holes. And possibly trees in the ground.
Absolutely.
Possibly. Still have your pots.
When you're in your wheelchair,
we
they will
want
be
big-
digging up those trees because they've raised the street.
You want trees to grow. You want it to look. I love driving through
We'll
Solid and
have
seeing big
flexibility
trees.
in the plan, so when that development comes for the city to do
Call the
it,
Santa
we can
Maria
take a look
Public
at it.
Works guy
Okay.
to come and tell us what
Okay,
efficiency is.
so is anybody going to move on this?
I'll make a motion to
Resolution
approve.
ordinance?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Let's do each.
Yeah, each separate.
Each separately.
The resolution number 17-19, your
Okay, hold on.
page 34.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 17/19, a resolution City Council, City of Buellton, California, approving mitigating declaration and mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program for the Avenue Flag specific plan. Can I do the second one as well?
With changes?
We'll do
Second on that one, anybody?
With
I'll
changes.
second. Oh, with
changes
With
and
changes.
No, there's no changes on that
Council
one.
resolution.
Okay.
Councilmember Mercado gave the second. Linda?
Okay, Councilmember Rife.
Aye.
Councilmember Mercado.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Andrusik.
Aye.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye. Alrighty.
So I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 17-04, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California, adopting the Avenue Flag specific plan.
Introduction and first
Introduction and first reading, and with
The changes that
proposed
were
changes
discussed.
that were discussed.
I'll second.
Linda?
Okay, Councilmember Rife.
Aye.
Councilmember Mercado.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
May I clarify something? One of those changes was not to increase the width of the medians.
No. It's the meetings are as in the specific plan document.
No.
They have the widths of the, on page 39.
Yeah, the specific changes were to widen the medians.
It's on page.
By 8 feet.
Correct.
4 feet on each
When it's
side.
there, it will never change.
That's
Okay.
each of the medians, right?
Mediums 1 through 4.
That's taking 4 feet of road on both sides.
Okay.
I'm okay
What was the? Who voted?
Councilmember King does not want.
No, I got it. So who's the next vote?
Are you a yes or no?
No.
You're a no.
No.
Okay. And then Vice Mayor Andrusik.
I would work towards keeping 2 lanes of traffic in both directions, just because of for the width. I don't want to narrow it down, but what do we? I don't think the median right now is 76 feet. Number 2 by 426 feet long. I don't see that changing, unless I'm not reading it right.
It is changing.
8 feet wider.
Medians 1 through 4 are all 8 feet wider.
You don't need 8 more feet. You just need 2 lanes of traffic to move the people. We're not going to have diagonals on that, at least on
Right, but the specific plan calls only 1 lane of traffic in each direction.
But that's not where we're at. I don't think you've got. That's a tough one, because how that's a major thing that can't be changed later when you realize
Correct.
you need 2 lanes of traffic.
It's
my point.
It's the same thing we've talked about for 5 years.
Yeah.
This has been like this for 5 years.
I've never liked 1 lane in each direction. So I guess I would have to vote no to make it.
Okay, and
Try to preserve the 2 lanes.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
The ordinance passed.
Because, okay. Well,
Alrighty. Moving on. I think we might be losing Councilmember Rife. Okay. Councilmember comments / items. Councilmember Mercado, anything from you?
Nothing at this time.
Councilmember King?
No.
Councilmember Rife? Vice Mayor Andrusik?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yesterday there were two events in Santa Barbara. We had the 7th annual Central Coast Sustainability Conference at UCSB. Attended that, picked up the program for staff's library, I suppose. Then I also attended the water symposium where they gave down in Orange County huge problems with needing more and more water. groundwater reserve system. It was very interesting, worth the visit. The next event was our insurance carriers risk management 22nd annual meeting. It's being held at Fess Parkers. They're now attended one of the sessions regarding it was don't be the next headline of the community going bad for poor relationships. That was JPIA. I would like future agenda item to have a report on street sweeping discussion, because I think we need to do something different. We were talking about a new one coming. I think we need to put in the RFP both sides of the street being available so that we can enforce, get your cars off or they're going to get towed, so we can clean the curbs. Otherwise we're wasting our time.
Okay, that'll be a different item, but that's a lot of signage and expense.
I don't even think we need that sign. I think if we just adopt it, and that you can put it at the stop signs or wherever you want to put it.
No parking for street sweeping.
Probably would have to be some signage.
There's have to be a lot of signage for that.
Okay. Well, then maybe we should have a workshop and ask the public how they feel about it, because they're upset that their streets aren't clean. They're being
yeah, we'll put an item so we can have a discussion on that.
Okay. And the last observation that I wanted to make sure everyone knew is that the city's official population is 5,127. It's over 5,000.
Went over 5.
So if Caltrans could get that 4,900 off the roadway signs while they're doing it.
Alrighty. I've got
in the class.
one more. Oh, please, go ahead.
The County Fire Department, City of Buellton, is asking the community to consider becoming a CERT team member. They're only going to have 2 classes, a high-impact event. Saturdays, both on Saturdays, October the 21st and October the 28th in the Buellton Rec Center, Room A, from 9 a.m. to noon.
And just to let you know, that's not County Fire, that is the City of Buellton who's putting that on.
Okay, well, it says your Santa Barbara County Fire Department and the City of Buellton.
Okay, yeah, it's our staff person who's putting it on.
Very good.
Okay.
Public information.
Thank you. And if everybody would please put on your calendars, 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon at Oak Valley School Auditorium. The Friends of the Buellton Library have hired Mary and Abraham Lincoln to come down and talk to the kids. And the community is invited to sit in the back row, and they come in costume and very interactive, and it is supposed to be amazing. So if you don't have anything going on at 1 o'clock tomorrow, Oak Valley School. On October 17th, the Historical Society, Rudy Henderson will be giving a talk about the Valley. 7 o'clock, P. Soup Anderson on October 17th. And October 18th is the last pickup day. We'll be picking up that morning for the stand down for our veterans at Santa Maria Fair Park, October 21st. I believe we have 3 gentlemen's vets going from the Buellton Senior Center. The pickup is at 7:45, and if anybody who is a veteran wants to be treated like a rock star for a day, Santa Barbara County Fairgrounds, October 21st. I do have one item I'd like to, or a couple. I have a resident who was given a ticket for a dog off leash. We follow the state of California's their codes, infraction codes, and so does the county. We picked that one up. I've been told, I believe by our police chief, that when you receive a ticket for a dog off leash or for jaywalking, it's considered a misdemeanor. And I would like to review some of the codes and see if we could lower some of those 2 infractions so that the bail's not $485.
That's how it eventually ends up, as an infraction, and I don't think it is in our municipal code. It is.
We've adopted the County of Santa Barbara, who's adopted the state of California. But we do, as council, don't we have the opportunity to change a municipal
Take a
code?
look at that. But a lot of the infractions are set according to bail schedules that are applied uniformly.
And that's
Okay.
statewide.
Okay.
We can.
Yeah,
we
I
can
just
take a look at that.
Thank you.
See
I
their
just think
options.
jaywalking and dogs off leash shouldn't be a misdemeanor. So, and also I'd like to, I know we're doing a traffic count on Central, I'd also like to bring back a discussion about a speed study.
For
Central.
And didn't we mention 2nd Street as well?
We could do 2nd because it's not posted there?
No, I don't think that's a,
okay.
Rose, that's not a speed survey street either, is it?
Can I piggyback on that a little bit? When we do these, is it cheaper or is it the same cost if you add in multiple streets?
Multiple streets usually is much more efficient. You got to keep in mind though, these are residential streets. The prima facie speed limit there is 25. We've discussed for other reasons, like going down to 15 for school areas, in which that's justified. And so on.
But the issue is not the prima facie speed limit, it's being able to use radar. If we don't have a speed survey, we can't use radar. Irrespective, if it says 25 in a residential street, there's no speed survey, we cannot use radar, and that's the reason we want to do that.
So can we add multiple? Can we bring that back? Can we add multiple streets?
We'll bring it as a discussion item, and you can put the streets in.
Because I've heard complaints on Valley Dairy. People come to me about Valley Dairy. There's a number of concerns that should. If we're going to do a streets, or we're going to pay somebody, then we should have multiple streets.
No.
Okay.
Sheriff said no.
Okay.
But I remember about 12 years ago they had a speed survey in Buellton, and when they did the survey and it got to the courts, there's only a certain percent of the average speed. If everyone's doing 50 miles an hour, you can't make it 40.
That is correct.
It has to be within. So
be careful what you wish for, huh?
Yeah, I mean they were quite unhappy because they.
Do we have
any
written communication?
No, ma'am.
Any committee reports?
No.
I've been told by Caltrans that our southbound sign 140B that says Avenue of the Flag, since I harass poor Eileen every month about it, it will be changed out by the end of the year. I know.
Congratulations.
A commitment.
People, other council members have tried in the past.
To that poor woman.
You've been writing, or
it was in a room full of people. Okay. City managers report.
Don't believe it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Caltrans, our project Camp M. Where are we, Rose? Is it done?
There, I believe, some minor punch lists, but it's primarily complete at this point.
Very good, and we do have a project on the Avenue flags that will be reviewed now with the Art Deco architecture. It's at 518 Avenue flags, and that's in for processing at this time.
Gas station.
Oh, the gas station.
Yeah.
No,
it's at the old gas station lot. It is your bathroom showroom.
It is the bathroom.
It is,
right, with the other units that they're having as far as... Right. And we're still working on the 2 industrial projects for Gavin. We're getting those forward. Hopefully in December and maybe January, the 2 projects will be going to public hearing.
And how is our pocket park doing? Over the little park by the townhomes? Any news on that one?
We're still trying to see where they're at, and we keep trying. They say it's at the county, and we're...
Okay. Yeah, we saw comments the county had regarding the gazebo and elevations, and they had to change the grading to bring it back down, so they have to do ramps and some other miscellaneous comments, which then in turn they're going to have to prove to us, because that's substantial grading changes, that the grading and drainage hasn't been affected negatively based on that change. So it's moving forward very slowly.
Very slowly. Thank you.
That is it.
Thank you very much. Alrighty, meeting adjourned. We'll see you all next Thursday, October 26th at 6 o'clock.